Hello, everybody. So first of all, I would like to introduce myself. I am Mrs. Ghani Amina, a secondary school teacher of English and a doctorate student in the field of didactics of literature and gender studies at Sidi Bin Abbas University. So it's my pleasure to welcome everybody here, including teachers, professors, and doctorate students. I would like also to give special thanks to the conference team and organizers who gave us the chance to participate in this significant event. Well, our topic for presentation is entitled Linguistic Analysis of the Other-Genderedness in the Science Fiction Novel The Left Hand of Darkness. This topic is in fact interdisciplinary as it combines linguistic, cultural, literary, and gender studies. So there are numerous points to tackle in this topic, but we try to summarize as much as possible. Well, we tend to introduce this work by taking a glimpse on three main points. The first point is about the role of linguistic analysis in reading and interpreting literature. So, linguistics is not only about understanding text, but it goes beyond. Linguistic analysis deals with demonstrating the way readers get to interpret a text in a particular way. This allows readers to focus on particular aspects or issues when reading literature. So we might read through a historical, social, cultural, as well as a gender lens. Such reading lenses pertain to one's own perception of reality we explore in the text. In this respect, science fiction literature is a significant genre of literary production that reflects social realities. In this paper, we investigate gender in science fiction literature by means of a linguistic framework called transitivity in systemic functional linguistics, introduced by Mark Halliday. So, how may transitivity in systemic functional linguistics be applied to decode the other-genderedness in the novel The Left Hand of Darkness? And what social and cultural aspects does the novel represent? The first element we tackle in the review of literature is the other-genderedness in science fiction literature. A canon of science fiction postulates new humans create a new gender or eliminate gender, and themes differ from a male dominance perspective to feminine challenge of gender hierarchies. Respectively, we provide some examples for further readings. One of the provoking works in science fiction literature is Octavia Butler's Xenogenesis trilogy and Caroline Gilman's Halfway Human, in which they create a third gender. Also to mention Ursula Le Guin's The Left Hand of Darkness, in which she imagines a world without gender. The second element we tackle in our literature review is stylistics in studying literature. Style, as defined by Leach and Short, 2007, is the linguistic characteristics of a particular text in which language serves a particular artistic function. So stylistics tend to study linguistic performance under the so-called notion of discourse. Before we proceed to explain the notion of transitivity, it is important to note that discourse analysis and stylistics overlap when there is a need to analyze language functions by means of several interpretation means. So, as with the idea of function, Halliday introduces three meta-functions of language. The first meta-function is the textual, which provides the formal properties of language. The clause serves as message. The interpersonal meta-function is concerned with social relationships. The clause serves as exchange. And the ideational meta-function expresses ideas and experience. The clause serves as representation. The transitivity system within the ideational meta-function construes the world of experience. into a manageable set of process types. So why using the transitivity framework to investigate gender in literary text? The reasons are as follow. A literary text as an alternative source through which a certain extent of reality is expressed and displayed constitutes participants or rather characters that writers use to present this reality. Language choice made on the lexical and grammatical level serves as a part of character representation. So the transitivity system consists mainly of three elements: participants, processes, and circumstances. Participants are the persons involved in the process. Participants are labeled in any literary text as characters displaying different roles. Processes are realized through the verb or verb phrase, or very seldom through a nominalized verb. We distinguish 6 types of processes: material, mental, behavioral, relational, existential, and verbal. Circumstances are often presented through prepositional clauses or adverbs. They determine the where, when, and how. In the methodological section, analysis based on the transitivity framework is performed to allow differences to appear in terms of process types between the main characters, Genli I and Argavan. Genli I is an Earth-born man who goes for a mission to Gethan. Gethan is another planet in the space, which is also called in the novel the planet Winter. Argavan is the king of the Gethenians. So the novel is written by Ursula Le Guin in 1969, a feminist science fiction writer. The story takes place on the planet Gethen. The story is narrated by Genli I and Esraven in turn, especially in the first chapters. So starting with analysis or transitivity analysis of the main character Genli I. So because of time constraint, we are not proceeding deeply into the novel, but we tend to select some extracts from the novel. The extracts are directly related to the previously mentioned characters. So in an effort to analyze and interpret I's use of processes, we found a mixture of behavioral and mental processes. Behavioral processes as listen, watch, and see. Mental processes we have to understand, like, feel, trust, and think. Behavioral processes are categorized between material and mental processes, and sometimes they are considered as subtypes of material processes if they identify active actions. So this is for Halliday and Matheson, 1996. As for mental processes, the phenomenon is mainly Esraven, the king, Argavan, or the Gethenians. So let's explain the point of phenomenon. So let's go back to the examples. Like in 3, I don't trust Esraven. So I is the participant who refers to the character Genli I. Don't trust is the mental process, and Esraven is the phenomenon. If we see the behavioral processes, I listen and watch, seeing a Gethenian. So here the participant is I. I refers to the character Genli I. The process watch is a behavioral process, and the attribute is the king. The attribute in the fifth sentence is a Gethenian, seeing a Gethenian. The character seems pensive and curious about Gethenians' appearance and behavior. Such aspects are noticed in the use of cognitive mental processes in examples 6, 7, and 8. So, Cognitive mental processes are identified by the verb to think. Example, I thought that at table Estraven's performance had been womanly, for it was impossible to think of him as a woman. Whenever I thought of him as a man. The character Jenny I sees many Athenians as male or female based on traits and behaviors. So here the character is undecided to recognize their gender. His descriptions and categorizations are also seen from the use of intensive relational processes which indicate the way he qualifies them. Relational processes are identified by the auxiliary to be, as in examples 9, 10, 11, and 12. His voice was soft. He was not merely adroit and not merely powerful. He was faithless. Argavan was less kingly, less manly. His voice was thin. The king is pregnant. Throughout the novel, it was also noticeable that Janley uses material processes to perform actions as in examples 12, 13, and 14. And of course, this reflects the nature of his mission. So material processes are identified by verbs like accomplish, I must accomplish, I must set the keystone, I wanted to go to Orgorain, I wanted to finish up with Carhide, so I sold another ruby. So moving to the transitivity analysis of the character Argavan. Argavan is the king of Gethen. Argavan does not have the characteristics of a powerful, intelligent, and ambitious king. Argavan lacks action as most of the processes he uses are merely emotive and mental or relational. We consider the following extract. I don't like tricks, Mr. I. This is an emotive mental process. I do fear you, envoy. This is also an emotive mental process. I fear those who sent you, and so on. In the third example, we have a relational process. I am already afraid. I am the king. So here we notice a miscommunication between Argavan and Genly because of the other. It is the other-genderedness that makes it difficult for Genly to accomplish his mission. Unlike Genly, the character Argavan is rarely the participant of processes. As a king, he does not take effective actions that reflect his masculine potency. In the following extracts, we find a mixture of processes, relational, emotive, and material, in which he is completely absent as a character. So let's explain this point. So if you go back to Genly's processes, he identifies himself more as a character, like I must accomplish, I wanted to go. And even in the cognitive or the mental processes that he used, I thought it's impossible to think of him. I thought of him as a man. The same is for behavioral processes. I listen as I. So here, the character Jelly I involves himself as a participant, in contrary to the character King Argavan. In conclusion, we try to give some interpretations of the socio-cultural context. So based on our analysis, we found that the use of particular process types in a particular way introduce different expectations and worldviews. Genly I, as an earth-born man, describes the Chthonians as not purely men nor women according to their appearance, like not merely adroit, not merely powerful, less kingly, and less manly. And in describing their voice as soft, resonant, and thin. So here the character generally sees the Chthonians as androgynous people. So just to mention that androgyny is the combination of masculine and feminine characteristics into an ambiguous form. Feminine-like characteristics and roles of the Githinian people reflect the idealization of single-gender societies, and this may be a repository of Le Guin's thoughts being influenced by a particular society or holding certain attitudes towards the conception of masculinity and femininity as well. The king is pregnant, calls for women liberation and rose shared by all the inhabitants. So it is the other-genderedness that led to miscommunication between Genli and the Githinians and vice versa. So we noticed a kind of conflict in the novel, and based on our analysis of the processes, there is a kind of social prejudice as a result of patriarchal dominated society. So as a protagonist, Genli comes from the same expectations of society that we as readers do. So I wish you enjoyed my presentation, and thank you for your attention.